Hi, this is Sandra from Raising Math Superstars and Real World Learners. And I wanted to come on today and show you guys a story about a Rubik's Cube and an abacus. And as I promised in the description here, tell you a story about the very different lives they lead. Okay, so my background is that I'm a math teacher. I have a master's in teaching, and I've been creating courses and resources to help kids enjoy and learn math in a really solid way. So I have an interesting tool, math toy that has come up in our house recently. We have a Rubik's Cube, and I've been watching my boys and my husband play with this and learn all the tricks, the strategies to solving one of these things. As I've been watching them, I've run across something that kind of inspired this whole talk, and I want to show you what I was thinking about. So I was asking my son earlier to show me what he's learned about how to solve one of these things. And I couldn't possibly repeat it to you, but he was going on and on about all the different ways that you flip and turn and slide and do magic on one of these Rubik's Cubes. But he kept using the word algorithm, and it kind of jumped out at me and made me think about the way he was describing it. I'm like, there's something here that sounds familiar. I've heard something like this before. So anyways, he was talking to me about, you have to, find you guys may know more than I do about this, but find the crosses, find I forget all the terms, the diamond in the middle or something, do the right algorithm 6 times, do the left algorithm. He's counting 24 times as he's madly spinning it and getting to something. So anyways, as he was describing all of this, if you'll stick with me here, I had a little revelation. I'm like, I know where I've heard this before. Okay. So I'm going to show you something, and then if you'll stick with me, you'll see the story behind this, where this is headed. Okay. It's like, this sounds really familiar. All of this talk about, okay, if it ends up like this, then you have to do this. And then they're going around asking, okay, what algorithm do I use now? And they keep going back to YouTube and trying to see what the next steps are and memorize all these steps. And I realized what this sounds like is the way that kids often approach math. So you have something like 24 minus 12. Let me get my pin here. So we say, okay, in this situation, you do 4 minus 2 is 2. 2 minus 1 is 1. That's easy. There's your answer. But what if the numbers are flipped? You can't just do 2 minus 4 anymore. And this is where you start losing kids, around about first grade, maybe second grade math. So in this case, we start coming up with these tricks. You say, if the bottom is bigger, borrow. And all of a sudden, kids have to learn this new series of tricks for something that looks very similar, but there's a new version on it now. So we say, okay, you have to borrow. I won't bore you with it, but you take 1, you bring it over. Now you have 12 minus 4. Okay, what do we do there? There's a whole set of things. You can either just memorize your math facts. You can count down. You can count up. You can think about it on a number line. All sorts of situations. However you do it, you get 8. Then we move up, proceed in life. You get to fractions. So there's new sets of rules, all kinds of situations. To me, it's just like taking this thing, watching my son madly spin, count 24 times as he's doing all these flips on it. I promised him I wouldn't mess it up, but I couldn't do it if I tried. Anyways, as they're trying to remember all of the rules that come into place, you just keep kind of throwing new rules at kids. You may have seen the butterfly effect, where you cross multiply and divide, or cross multiply as you're working with fractions. And the list just goes on. I kind of tossed a couple of these up here. Then you get into long division. And now there's all kinds of new steps that you have to do. You have to divide, multiply, subtract, bring down, repeat. And you go through all these steps, just like the abacus, or just like the Rubik's Cube here. Then you get into this kind of scary thing where you get all these math memes going around on the internet. See if you can be smarter than a 5th grader and solve that. And so you come up with something like PEMDAS. You probably have heard that before. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. And it's a trick to remember what you do with parentheses and exponents and what order you do things in. Okay, so I wanted to bring that part of the story in to talk about the traditional approach. I don't know if traditional is really the word I mean, but the approach that we grew up, probably most of us learning how to do math, in the way that we're kind of just by habit, by default, we're teaching our kids all of these tricks, all of the rules, mnemonics to help them memorize what to do when. And I wanted to bring up in opposition in something as a different example. What's a totally, completely different approach we can take to math? So I wanted to bring in my absolutely favorite math tool, the abacus here. There's different versions of this. Kind of the more trending version of an abacus is the Rec and Rec. There's also really well-respected math gurus, math people, teaching how to use beaded number strings. But I think there's a lot of things. Also, you have 10 frames. A lot of these are on the same page where you're building out numbers in groups of 10s with subgroups of 5s so that everything can be subitized. Every number in the world almost can be, maybe within a couple hundred, can be instantly recognized. If you build out that really intuitive number sense of seeing them in groups of 10s with the subgroups of 5s and then smaller bits of 1s. So I wanted to contrast, that's the word I was looking for, Rubik's Cube with an abacus, and how these completely different ways of thinking can teach us how to teach our kids math, or how to help them learn in a non-intimidating, intuitive way. So if we can lay aside the Rubik's Cube concept and pick up a whole new approach to math, let's talk about number sense. How can we help our kids just develop good, strong number sense? And I like to think about this as we give kids numbers, not just lonely numbers that are symbols on a page, but we give kids counting items, and we make it tactile from the youngest age. So basically, we're putting numbers in their hands, and then we're showing them how to put them together, how to take them apart. And that builds up a foundation of number sense that they can build addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, fractions, integers with positive and negative numbers, decimals. They can carry it very smoothly into algebra, work with variables and rational expressions and all of this. And it really, really comes about by this foundation of number sense that you can build if you help kids learn numbers on an abacus or a Rec and Rec or a number rack, something along those lines. And I always like to say, if you've heard me talk before, you'll know this is one of my catchphrases. We want kids to get to the point where they feel so confident doing math that they know that they're the ones in control of the numbers. The numbers are not in control of them. We want to really flip the narrative on that. Okay, so what does this mean? I'm going to switch the screen here so I can talk. Okay, so let me just give an example. What does this mean to build it out from a really young age? If you're working with a kid who's 4 years old, 5 years old, you want to just lay a solid foundation. Or if you have maybe 5th or 6th graders or older, they're struggling with their math facts, you want to kind of go back in and retrofit the foundation, just put some really strong structures in place that will help them fill in the gaps and also build a stronger building on it. So let's take a look at what this means. The Rubik's Cube way to do math is just memorize a lot of strategies, a lot of things. The number sense way is to say, okay, what is a number? Let's look at the number 15. So you show them how to build out 10 and 5. Okay, that's easy, 10 and 5. It's subitizable. They can tell at a glance without counting, that's what subitize means, that this is 15. They know how to put it together. It's a group of 10 and 5. They know how to take it apart. You can call it 10 this way and 5 this way. You can make any variation on that, 9 and 6, etc. And you're immediately getting into adding and subtracting with some really solid strategies, just as they play around with these groupings here. Okay, then let's take a look at 28. So they can make 28, 10, 20, and 8. They'll learn to see it as 5 and 3 more. It's green, and I have a green screen behind me, so it's invisible. But 8 is 5 and 3 more. Okay, and then they'll do this with their hands tactilely as many times as they need, as many years as they need, so that they really get this intuitive sense of it. They really see it. And I always tell my students, work with it. Don't go to the shortcut just to the lonely numbers. You want to work with it with your hands on until your hands put it in your brain and you have a brain abacus that goes with you forever. Okay. Because then they'll see this and they'll instantly be able to do 10, 20, 30. And then here's 2 5s. That makes another 10. And then there's an extra 3. Okay. They'll be able to do all of that with a hands-on visual, deep understanding of the place value. They can do the groupings. They can rearrange. It becomes something that's so intuitive and confident, and they're never intimidated. There's nothing in this process that will set them up for math anxiety. So we can completely bypass that. And I like to say we're just flipping the narrative on math anxiety. Okay, so when you get to this point of just seeing the numbers, knowing how to put them together, take them apart, it's very much like, you know, giving kids old appliances, an old watch, an old toaster, maybe a car engine, depending on, you know, just something, and just let them play with it, take it apart, put it back together. The more they do that, the more they'll be empowered, to be qualified, equipped to extend these numbers to new situations. Okay. And it's because math makes sense. That's another catchphrase you'll hear me say a lot. We don't have to approach math as if it's a Rubik's Cube. There's 2 approaches to a Rubik's Cube. Firstly, you're like me, you're terrified of it and you run away. Like, I don't even want to watch the YouTube videos. I don't want to think about that. My brain has other things to do. Or you're like my son and you're just determined at all costs to memorize all the things. Okay, those are kind of the 2 approaches to a Rubik's Cube. And unfortunately, 2 of the main approaches to math. But we can put all of that on the side. If we were programming a computer, how to do math, and we wanted to program the computer, how to solve 22 minus 14, like I had on the screen there, we say, okay, the bottom is bigger, so you have to borrow, you have to do this, you have like 17 steps to go through with multiplication, with division, with any math you throw at it. If you're going to program a computer, you do all of this, what I call math coding, where you write all the steps and you lay out all the possible variations on it. But brains are so much better than that. Our human brain is so much better than a computer. We don't have to do math coding. We can give kids, just help them build this number sense so that they'll enjoy math, they'll understand it, and they can build out on it. If we're doing the Rubik's Cube way, then all of these rules that you have for what to do, I wish I could remember what my son was telling me, but he was seriously naming, just talking so fast, naming all the different terms that you string together or all the different rules. And it's just like we do with math, where all of these different rules are isolated. They're all different. Every unique situation calls for a different set of rules. And then if all of those techniques are too difficult, we often revert in our own experience with learning math. And then as we help our kids learn math, we just revert to just memorizing the math facts. If all of the algorithms, you know, working with long division, where you have the 4 steps and repeat, 4 steps and repeat endlessly, you can just, you know, go, at some point you just kind of memorize math facts and hope that that can get by. But just memorizing math facts is very akin, I'm getting a lot of analogies in here and they might not all fit together perfectly, but it's very akin to building a house on sand. If you have everything built on these fragile numbers, these fragile math facts, as soon as it's forgotten, your house crumbles. So we want to work instead, instead of building that shaky foundation, we want to help our kids build this number sense that will just be a solid foundation that they can build on. So there's kind of, let me go back here, and I forgot to make it bigger so you can see what I'm writing. Okay, so another 2 examples. Let's take a look at 4 times 6 and 8 times 9. Bear with me here. I hope this will be as interesting to you as it is to me. If we go the most common route, most people would recommend flashcards. You just memorize it. Maybe you get a rhyme with it. Maybe you do a chant or a skip counting song. But all of that is in the same realm of the Rubik's Cube, where you're just memorizing something. You're not giving math the credit that that's due to it where you say math makes sense. Let's figure out what it is and how it works. For example, okay, let me say there's two main problems with the memorizing track. If you forget the answers, obviously you're lost if that was your only route to success there. And secondly, you can't build on it and expand it out to bigger things. If instead you take a number sense approach, let's talk about what that means. Going back to the big screen here for just a second. Okay, if we do a number sense approach to 4 times 6, we say, okay, we know that 6 is 5 and 1. So let's just get 4 groups of that because we know what multiplication is. It means groups of things. So we have 4 groups of 5 and 1. We're visualizing that in our head. We're doing that concretely. Then we know that 2 5s makes a 10. Another 2 5s makes a 10. And here's 4 ones. So the answer just jumps off the abacus at you. You can look at that and instantly say 10, 24. The answer is 24. And by doing this enough times with your hands, kids will go from hands-on math to mental math and almost entirely bypass, in several cases, bypass the written stage. Now, the written stage is still important because that's what sets you up for really taking it to the next level where you can do more strategic things. Take what you learn in 3rd grade multiplication and apply it to algebra. But anyways, you go from these stages, from the hands-on to the written, to the ability to talk about the numbers, and then to mental math. And it's all in this realm where you have number sense, the math makes sense. Kids will really feel empowered about what they're doing and feel confident in themselves as learners, which that confidence that they can do something is kind of the biggest thing of all, because they're not crippled by this math anxiety where they see number and they're kind of just the hackles come up. Okay, then another example really quick is if we're doing 8 times 9, like I talked about there. When kids have this number sense of times 9, or of what a 9 is, you usually would think about it as 10. It's 1 less than 10. So anything you're doing with 9s, you just usually would want to make it a 10 and then take back what you gave it. So if you're doing 8 times 9, so I did the 4 times 6 one with the abacus, you could see it. Let's do this one written. 8 times 9, we're thinking of that as writing 8 times 10 minus 1. So they'll do this with a picture, and then they'll learn to translate it to the numbers on the page. 8 times 10 would be 80. And then 8 times 1 is 8. And then you have 72 left over. So they'll be able to apply that to any number of things. You can easily scale that up. You can work it with variations. You can, make this work with negative numbers, with decimals. You can apply it to fractions. You can do all kinds of things with it. But let me move on. Sometimes I get carried away with the math if I go too far down that rabbit hole. So in conclusion, we don't want to treat math in our own heads, and as we're raising kids, we want to give them a better experience with math, a happier time with it, because that comes back to us if our kids are happier with it. I think we all have happier lives. We don't want to treat math like a Rubik's Cube. Okay, and please understand, I'm not saying don't do Rubik's Cubes. I think there's a whole world of good that can come out of doing this, and some kids just gravitate towards it. But we shouldn't treat math like this, okay? We don't want to encourage our kids just to meaninglessly memorize these unrelated, rather mysterious, esoteric algorithms so that they can get faster and faster and show off. It's kind of what it comes down to. We want them to build out this beautiful, coherent, it makes sense, cohesive, it all ties together, number sense in math so that they can have a strong foundation. They're sure of what they're doing and they can build on it. And then I really, really recommend the abacus, but there's a lot of variations on this that are just as good. Again, the Reck and Rec, sometimes called a number rack. beaded strings, if you see those in groups of 5s, every 5, the beads change colors. 10 frames, if you're working with numbers less than 20, are a really good foundation for this. Okay, so hopefully you had some good ideas you can take home. I kind of talked about my take-home strategies or ready-to-go strategies that you can use as you're working with your own kids. I have created, you may have heard me talk about this before if you've been around or if you've seen me talk before, but I've, based on my experience as a math teacher with a master's in teaching and now homeschooling my own kids, I've been creating courses, resources to help kids develop this number sense. So these tools that I've been talking about, the 10 frame and the abacus, I've built a complete course around these. Okay, not putting all of the tools on display, but really strategically using a 10 frame and an abacus because you can get the most for your money with using these two tools. Okay, the rest, there's so many other things that are valuable and kind of build out the picture of number sense, but I think you can get a lot of leverage out of these two. So I want to show you again this one. I have built out a series of courses called Developing Number Sense using 10 frames. And then that's kind of on the addition and subtraction side. Once we get to multiplication and division, we use those same strategies, but move up and help kids really build out their multiplication and division. So there's part 1 for, I'd say 4 to 7-year-olds. Part 2 includes a condensed version of all of part 1, but it's geared towards older kids who may be struggling and want to go back and fill in their foundation, kind of retrofit their number sense. But they don't necessarily need the same version that we would give to the 4 to 7-year-olds. So part 2 has that sped up version, and then it goes a deep dive into multiplication and division. If you follow the link below, you'll see there's also an isolated multiplication course, if that's all you want. There's the complete course. I have a masterclass for parents. And then on occasion, I'll run through live mini classes where I teach these live. And I'm also teaching full year courses with True North Homeschool Academy. So a lot going on here. And these have been fun. I wanted to take a minute to share a couple quotes that parents have shared with me because it's been such a revolutionary yet simple way for parents to help their kids feel confident about math and enjoy it. And that's the thing that I keep hearing parents and kids come away with, is that learning this way is really life-changing because kids grow up understanding math and they can just apply it. Doors aren't closed to them. They can keep growing with that. So anyways, you probably have read that in the time that I'm talking, so I'll move on. Such an easy way for kids to truly understand the meaning of numbers and how to use them. I agree. Great way to learn math without boring repetitions and memorizing. So I have a whole nother video I've shared before about what do we need to memorize? Well, we need to memorize our phone number. We need to memorize our house address. We need to memorize our social security number because those are all random. There's no intrinsic sense to them. We don't need to memorize math because it makes sense. Math is logical. It's built on a foundation of sense making. So we, instead of just, throwing out the facts and saying memorize them, we get deep into it and say, what is this? How does it work? And then you can always recreate that knowledge if you've built it yourself in the first place, rather than just holding on to those fragile facts. Okay. And then this is a student quote that I love. Amazing. I loved it. It was super fun and learned a lot. I have a really fun time in these courses. When I do them live, I love getting to those aha moments with the kids, but I've packaged the self-paced course so that it delivers, hopefully, those same aha moments where they get it and they feel really proud of themselves doing it. And then I know that a lot of people are watching this on replay, so I will just leave these quotes here instead of reading all of those. You can pause the video. Felt like there was one thing else I wanted to say, but I think that kind of wraps up what I And thank you. I just saw the quote on here. Son loves the abacus we made for him for your class. Good. I really also, I don't have any within reach, but I encourage kids to make their own abacus. You don't really need, this is not an expensive way to approach math. We've made some out of Cheerios on strings before. You can do a lot, and that hands-on experience really helps. So if you have any questions as you're watching this now or on the replay, certainly leave comments or questions, and I'll come back and continue to answer those. And thank you for being here. I do have links below and a coupon code, and I will end here. Thank you for watching.